This afternoon, we have the pleasure and the privilege of speaking to one of the candidates who is in the running, and this is Dr. Samuel Maimbo. He is one of the 5 candidates running for the presidency of the African Development Bank. Now, he has an extensive CV. I'm looking at it right now. He's worked in development finance across Africa as well as the globe, most recently serving as the Vice President of Budget, Performance Review and Strategic Planning at the World Bank. Dr. Maimbo has been endorsed by SADC and COMESA. And for more on this, we're joined by the man himself, Dr. Samuel Munzele Maimbo, the Zambian candidate for the presidency of the African Development Bank. Good to have you with us. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to the conversation. Thank you for your time.
Are you looking forward more to the conversation or more to May the 29th, Doctor?
I'm looking forward to June 1, when all of this is behind us.
I like that. Your eye is on the future very, very clearly. So,
absolutely.
So, Doctor, what is it that inspired your candidacy for the presidency of the African Development Bank? And perhaps if you could put that in perspective for us, how has your experience at the World Bank also shaped vision for the bank's future?
Well, to be candid, it's out of love for my continent and out of concern that I'm running in this race. Love for my continent, because we often spend too much time telling all of the negative stories about Africa. But the truth is, this continent is growing. It's vibrant. We have 16 countries growing at more than 6% per annum. We have a youthful population. You go to any city, whether it's Johannesburg, Cape Town, Lagos, this continent is active and vibrant. And I want to be part of that story. But I'm also concerned because despite the growth we have on the continent, we still have too many Africans who are being left behind. We have young people who are still looking for jobs. We have governments who know exactly what they want to do, struggling to find the financing that they need to finance the development for their people, especially many on the continent who are still struggling with debt. What I want to do is to use the experience that I have been privileged to have at the World Bank, whether it is in financing and raising significant amounts of resources, whether it's in operations, 18 years of it, 7 years in Africa, to make sure that we're scaling up the size of our operations significantly. That's what I'm eager to get my hands on. Right now, to be honest, we have many wonderful projects on the continent. The challenge we have is they're too small to make a lasting difference. And that's exactly what I want to do at the African Development Bank. Increase the pace and scale of our operations so that we are making lasting impacts right across the continent.
You speak about the need for development financing or financing that will go towards development. But I wonder how much wastage there is within African governments, that when financing has been made available, development still is not the outcome of that financing. I know you're coming more from the economic and the financing sector of it, but how would you ensure a reduction in wastage?
But the truth of the matter is, look, even if we've plugged all of those holes, currently, we still wouldn't grow because we're not tackling the structural challenges we have on the continent. To give you a simple example of my own country, we're spending $300 million importing fuel from Saudi Arabia when Angola has fuel. Angola is importing $500 million worth of beef from Argentina when Namibia has beef. The reality is the trades between ourselves are not happening because we don't have the infrastructure in place. There is no pipeline between Angola and Zambia. There is no road infrastructure that would allow Namibia and Angola to trade to the volumes that they have. And as long as we're not trading with each other, then every year, as we have done over the last 10 years, we will continue to talk about the fact that Africa only contributes 3% of GDP in terms of global trade. And if we don't do anything now, by 2030, it will be at 2.7 because the rest of the continent, the rest of the world is growing faster than it is. So I'm alive to the importance of closing those leakages wherever they happen, committed to doing that. But I'm even more energized to make sure that we are having honest conversations on the continent and fixing the plumbing to make sure that we can actually trade with each other, that we can actually pick those sectors that are creating jobs for our young people. I love all of the movies coming out of South Africa, as I do Nigeria. And the movie industry is a good example where each film is creating 40 jobs of people from diverse backgrounds. But why only these two countries? We should be expanding this. And what I want to do at the African Development Bank is to make sure that we are picking those sectors that are creating more jobs than we currently are at the moment. And as much as it's an economic issue, like you rightly pointed out, you cannot separate it from what you rightly described as the public sector foundation upon which we must build our economies. So closing those gaps and making sure that we don't have more leakages than we have growth is absolutely essential. And I certainly intend to keep my eyes on both.
From your experience, is there indeed a political will to, for example, build that infrastructure? Why has it not been a priority of the governments of the continent to ensure that the Angola, for example, which you brought, is actually used for fuel, that Namibia is used for beef instead of other countries?
You know, over the last 9 months that I've been campaigning, and in particular the last 3 months where I've covered 27 countries, meeting various political leaders, meeting the private sector, meeting young people, I have been greatly encouraged that we have an opportunity today, by and large, of leaders who know what they need to do. I can tell you in Zambia, for example, we've been talking about how we expand the Lobito corridor to do much more than what that one project can do. So I'm not worried at this moment about the political appetite for meaningful, substantive, and sustainable change. What worries me today is the financial environment in which we find ourselves in, where global concessional financing is declining, where the traditional global value chains are being pulled back to home countries, where nationalism is on the rise. And it's in this environment which I want to make sure that the African Development Bank is using its voice to champion African causes, is using its finances to close those structural gaps that now we have the political leadership in place in many countries, not all, to actually get the job done. And then importantly, we're investing in our future by working with young people, because ultimately, I think they are much more brave, they are much more impatient than perhaps my own generation has been in addressing some of these structural issues. But your link to the political dimension of development is absolutely appropriate. And I think one of the reasons I was very keen to go to the African Union and meet the new chair is because I firmly believe that the African Union and the African Development Bank are two sides of the same coin. We have to address development as a political issue, as a mandate that we work together, because that's the reality, at least that I have found over the 30 years I've been in development. I very rarely have found the opportunity to work in best case scenarios where you tick the box on political commitment, you tick the box on financing, you tick the box on partnership. Those best case scenarios don't exist. I look for best fit, and I'm comfortable working with second or third best solutions as long as I'm getting the results I need on whatever issue I'm working on.
I'm really interested in your interest in the youth, and you mentioned that right now one of the things that you're planning and are championing is the African Development Bank Youth Council. How would this council actually function, and what impact do you hope it will have as far as the bank's programs are concerned, as well as the policies?
You know, frankly, this idea has come about because I'm so tired of going to countries, spending time with young people, listening to their vibrant business ideas, and then going to conferences where the average age is in the 60s and 70s. And then we talk about continental free trade, and then we talk about innovation. Our young people don't have the level of voice they deserve in determining the future of our country. So my idea is very simple. I just want to put in place an avenue where young people have direct contact with the leadership of the African Development Bank to hear what they're saying. And I'm pretty convinced that there will be many sectors where our job will be simply to provide them the space and get out of the way. I'm very excited that today there are many countries that provide workspaces for young people in tech to innovate, to try out different things, to meet other young people. What I want to make sure is that I have a young professionals program as well that makes sure that we are bringing into the African Development Bank 50 young professionals, half half men, half women, making sure that they're being given global experiences. They're going to work in other MDBs. We're hosting young peoples from these institutions. We're mixing them up. We're challenging with we're giving them the opportunity to work on some of our complex challenges. Whenever I have done this in my career, I've always been tremendously impressed because they have never failed to surpass my expectations of what would have been possible. That's the simple objective. I want to give them full access to what our programs are, how we've designed them, how we've thought about them. I want to make sure they're coming to the office and spending time. How exactly they are organized across the continent, I will leave that to the young people to self-organize, but it's something that I'm sure will work. The UN does this all the time with the UN model. I'm sure we can do this in development equally well.
Well, Dr. Samuel Maimbo, wishing you all of the best. As you say, you're looking forward not to the 29th, but to the 1st of June. Thank you so much for joining.
There's a lot of work to be done.
In between, well, look, you've been traversing the continent. You've gone through, 27 countries already campaigning. Well, we wish you all of the best as you continue. But you already have the stamp of the likes of SADC and COMESA. So congratulations on that. And wishing you all the best for the road ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time, and look forward to continuing this conversation one day with a young person right next to me.
Well, maybe on the 2nd of June, who knows?
Sounds good. You take care.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. There's Dr. Samuel Munzele Maimbo. He is the Zambian candidate for the presidency of the African Development Bank. It's on the 29th of May that we and the entire African continent will find out who the forerunning candidate will be for that presidency.